The story you are about to see was inspired by actual events. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
It was Thursday. It was overcast in Los Angeles. My partner and I were working the day shift out of robbery homicide. The call came in at 7:40. White male beaten to death in MacArthur Park. For the unfortunate in LA, this was like an outdoor motel. Bring your blanket and spend the night. My name's Friday. I'm a cop. The park's upper class were Salvadorian drug dealers competing for turf. Without armed protection, this is the last place you'd want to find yourself after dark.
Detective Joe Friday rides shotgun as his partner Frank Smith drives their unmarked cruiser into MacArthur Park. The dilapidated park is suddenly alive with forensic technicians, police officers, and other personnel from LAPD and the county coroner's office. Frank Smith parks their unmarked vehicle behind a black and white, which is about 20 feet from the dead body. Joe and Frank exit the vehicle, but for their purple latex gloves, for the moment, both men are empty-handed as they head over to view the homicide victim. Detective Joe Friday recognizes Assistant Medical Examiner Dr. Teresa Grunwell, the friends call her Terry, crouching next to the dead body, looking closely at the victim's left wrist and writing in a cheap spiral-bound notebook. At first glance, the victim is a thin, 20-something Caucasian male. He wears a brown sweater and purple Oxford shirt over denim blue jeans. His head badly bruised and crowned in blood, laying flat on his back, eyes open, looking to the sky, mouth closed, formed in a very slight smile, a cadaverous Mona Lisa.
I thought I had a bad night.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Joe.
Joe crouches near the body, opposite from Terry. Still standing, Frank reaches into his coat pocket and produces a small notebook in which he quickly begins entering information. Important, trivial, and all points in between.
Blunt force trauma, 3 to 4 blows, TOD around midnight.
Weapon?
No, nothing yet. Laceration suggests something with an edge.
Edge?
Yeah, that's not all. Check the eyes. Petechial hemorrhaging.
He was asphyxiated.
With his index finger covered in purple latex, Joe nudges the victim's Oxford collar 1 inch to the left to get a good look at his neck.
Strangled?
Not without ligature marks. No thumb impressions. Smothered, maybe.
Head trauma could have caused a seizure. We'll have to take a closer look.
Terry hands Joe a small transparent evidence bag containing a set of car keys.
Found these on him.
Lifting his glasses away from his eyes, Joe peers carefully through the plastic and reads aloud the emblem of the iconic European sports car.
Porsche.
With the key fob still inside the plastic evidence bag, Joe presses the car alarm button. In unison, Terry, Joe, and Frank all turn in time to see the flashing lights of a yellow Porsche 911 Carrera. Correctly identifying the specific make and model, Frank comments on the man who drove it here.
Drove here in a yellow Carrera. That guy had balls.
Put some tape around that car and make sure no one touches it till it goes to impound.
Wearing an LAPD-issued dark blue windbreaker, a stocky Latino plainclothes cop, Sergeant Carlos Sanchez hands Joe Friday a man's black leather wallet.
This was in the bushes about 50 yards north. Cleaned out. Left the license, though.
SC student, Jason Francis Beale.
As coroner's technicians lay a stretcher alongside the body, preparing it for transfer to the morgue, Joe matches the face on the driver's license to that of the dead man lying at his feet.
Jason Beale, 989 Sunset Plaza Place.
Hollywood Hills.
As Frank is talking to Joe, coroner's technicians lift the deceased onto the stretcher, and Joe notices the freshly tagged graffiti marking the ground beneath where the body had been lying.
Hollywood Hills. He's way off his turf.
Whoa. But on someone else's.
Crudely spray-painted the number 8 and the letters ST, 8th Street, most likely referring to LA's notorious 8th Street gang. But Joe Friday immediately suspects this is a counterfeit. The 8th Street gang's representative calling card is never written conventionally as the number 8. Rather, the Urban Social Club's proprietary logo is usually painted as a sideways figure 8, also the symbol of infinity, usually penned with an amateur nod towards 17th century Latin calligraphy of the Don Quixote era.
Banger's wasting paint on a white kid. You buying this, Carlos?
That's an 8th Street tag. Supposed to be anyway.
Meaning?
It's wrong. Should be a figure 8. Point of pride with these guys.
So what, a rival gang looking to pin it on somebody else?
There's no artistry here. Frame job or no, any banger's gonna know how to tag. See ya.
Take it easy.
The body was marked with a gang sign. If it seems too good to be true, it usually is.
LA Dragnet, The Big Ruckus, featuring the voices of Ed O'Neill, Ethan Embry, and Robert Gossett. Directed by Kevin Hooks. Written by Dan Dworkin, Jay Beattie, David Golden, and Marc Guggenheim. This episode adapted for audio drama by ProjectWasabi.com. Accompanying narration produced by Brian Newberry. This audio program adapted from the ABC television series LA Dragnet, created by Dick Wolf, based on the original Dragnet by Jack Webb. 12 noon. Joe Friday makes the sad telephone call and gets through to the victim's father, Gerald Beale. After delivering the tragic news and offering his condolences, Joe asks Mr. Beale to come down to the medical examiner's office to identify the body.
1:42 p.m. We were in the corners as the Beale family felt the earth fall from beneath their feet. It was part of the job that kept you up nights. Different cultures have different ideas when it comes to viewing the body. Some want to see it all, some only the face, and some just take our word for it.
After viewing the body and confirming the identity of Jason Beale, the parents, Gerald and Georgina, as well as the deceased sister, Alana, follow detectives into a small chapel where they will spend their first few moments in a world without Jason Beale. 2 brown leather couches, 2 reading lamps, dark green carpet, eggshell wallpaper. Gerald Beale's wife and daughter nearly collapse onto the first couch, holding on to each other as they mourn. Still standing, Gerald Beale leans over, kisses his wife's head, then his daughter's. He then turns around to speak with the officers. Whether intentional or subconscious, the 50-something father remains in place, thus blocking detectives from his family. Trying to be tactful, Frank Smith breaks the ice.
We know that Jason was at SC, a grad student.
Business program. The strings I had to pull to get him in.
Unfortunately, Mr. Beale, there's only one kind of business in MacArthur Park.
So this was a drug thing?
You don't seem surprised.
My son had some problems.
Yeah, but he also had some money. MacArthur Park's looking to buy on the cheap.
Money didn't come from me. I cut him off 2 years ago. I was paying his tuition, that's it.
And that was a result of his drug problem.
Senior year was the last straw. Got kicked off the water polo team for testing positive for cocaine. Almost a year we've been out of touch.
So you don't know any of his current friends?
Beale turns around, looks at his wife, and says,
Georgina, I want to know about Jason's friends.
They could call Eddie Polian. I've seen him recently with Jason. He's at the SC Film School.
When detectives arrive at the film school, they locate Eddie Polian working in Edit Bay 4, a large room with half a dozen workstations, each with 2 LCD monitors and black keyboards with different colored keys. Closing the door for privacy, Frank asks Eddie Polian when the last time was he saw Jason Beale.
Day before yesterday, we had lunch at Chaya. Jason sent his eye back. Twice. Too rare. That was Jason.
Eddie Polian is a skinny 24-year-old white guy, 5'7", 160 pounds. Clean-shaven with short, wavy brown hair, Eddie Polian wears glasses, Buddy Holly-style black rectangular frames. The aspiring young 21st century filmmaker wears an earth-tone print long-sleeve t-shirt over black designer jeans. His one concession to jewelry, a simple bead necklace with a piece of unpolished metal as its amulet, most likely sentimental. Girlfriend, maybe boyfriend, maybe relative.
Too rare. That was Jason. He knew what he wanted.
We heard that might have included drugs.
He dabbled.
Well, he'd have dabbled in MacArthur Park?
Look, I don't know. I didn't see him. I've been putting in 24-hour days reinterpreting Slavko Vorkapic's intellectual montage. All right, yeah. Maybe he was down there buying.
See, he must have known some upscale dealers, right? So why the park?
High-risk lookout for him.
That's probably why he was there. Jason got off on risk. The higher the better.
The more investigators know about how the late Jason Beale lived his life, the more likely they are to find out who ended it. Joe and Frank drive up to the luxurious two-story house of the late Jason Beale.
A kid just out of SC with a rich father who cut him off. No money, starting out in the world. Jason Beale should have been living with roommates in a crowded party house down at the beach. Somehow he got in a bungalow in the Hollywood Hills that probably went for $5,000 a month. Question was how? Who was this kid?
High in the hills, the airy and brightly lit home of Jason Beale seems to be made mostly of glass. Sliding glass doors and floor-to-ceiling windows overlook all directions. An easy and casual view of the swimming pool and the jacuzzi below. The descending hills in most directions, and of course, the downtown LA skyline off in the distance to the southeast. Inside, a split-level living room, expensive European furniture, track lighting, and a home entertainment system that can best be described as fully mission-capable. The occasional decorative art, $1,000 tchotchkes, central air, full-service bar, semi-weekly maid and gardening service keep the place immaculate, looking like a showroom. No sign of pets means everything stays white. Carpet, furniture, walls, hanging blinds. Joe begins looking through drawers as Frank spots a cordless telephone answering machine on the counter next to a glass jar. He checks it for messages. It comes up blank. Inside the glass jar, bright red licorice sticks nearly glowing. Frank opens the airtight lid, swipes the stick, closes the lid, and locks it with its latch. The 27-year-old detective says,
The guy sure didn't know how to live when he was alive.
Don't eat the dead guy's candy, Frank.
Joe discovers a box of Polaroid photos in the bottom drawer. He begins looking at them one by one, as if counting a deck of cards. Frank looks over his partner's shoulder. In total, about 100 mugshots. Each Polaroid, the face of a different homeless person looking back. Mostly men, a few women, some smiling, some not.
They don't have that family album look. What's with the numbers?
I don't know. Maybe photo art. Volunteer work. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't see him as a social activist.
Joe continues looking for the snapshots as Frank Smith walks through the house looking for more clues.
Hey, Joe. Got a laptop in here.
Check the email.
Frank Smith spends about 10 minutes going through Jason Beale's personal inbox and sent folder. Interesting in a voyeuristic sort of way, but nothing conspicuous or relevant to Jason's murder. A cursory study of Jason's social networks also leads nowhere. Frank closes the lid and begins filling out an evidence bag. Perhaps the computer forensic folks can find something useful on it. But two heads are better than one, and just as Frank is about to bag the laptop for evidence, Joe walks in.
Wait a second.
He restarts the laptop, and 5 minutes later he's seen pretty much the same as Frank. Gossip-worthy, but no death threats, no gang members, nothing suspect. A few exchanges with Eddie Polian, a lunch date with his sister Alana, a bunch of cheap deals on video equipment. Then Joe finds something interesting in Jason's spam folder. Correspondence. 4 messages marked as junk mail, each of which Jason has replied to at least twice.
Did you ever reply to junk mail?
No.
This guy did.
4 emails, each with 2 or more replies, all from the same person, Carrie Toft. Opening the most recent message first, Joe and Frank get an eyeful of the curvy blonde beauty in the form of several 640 by 480 full-color JPEG images. Obviously comfortable with her sexuality, Carrie enjoys different levels of undress, ranging from sexy lingerie to full nudity, erotic stills from every conceivable angle, and a couple the guys hadn't considered. In total, the 4 email exchanges contain 27 sexually charged, in some cases graphically explicit, images of the alluring and shapely Carrie Toft. As Joe and Frank read the XXX messages hidden in Jason's spam folder, it's increasingly obvious Jason and Carrie's relationship was on the down low, secret from their friends and peers.
So it's personal.
I'd say it's real personal.
Joe and his partner print out the emails, as well as the one picture with the clearest view of Carrie's face. Carrie in a blue wingback chair, wearing large hoop earrings and a sultry smile. Sitting in a position not found in the chair's sales pamphlets, Carrie's intent and body position instantly recognizable to anyone this side of puberty. No crime exchanging sexy emails. Au contraire. But specifically, this woman's direct personal knowledge of the murder victim makes Carrie Toft someone the cops need to talk to, and sooner is better than later. Before calling the State of California Department of Motor Vehicles, Frank opens his small notepad to this morning's briefing and lays it open-face on the desk in front of him. He then calls DMV, identifies himself as LAPD Detective 1 Francis Smith, gives his badge number, and tells the clerk he needs a residential address, home personal, for one Carrie Toft. When asked for authentication, Frank checks his notes and gives today's color of the day, aquamarine. Using the pictures she emailed to Jason Beale, as well as his own guesswork, Frank describes Carrie Toft as a white female blonde, 24 years of age, athletic build, 5'8", 140 pounds, no known distinguishing marks or tattoos. Frank writes down a confirmation number, thanks the DMV clerk, and ends the call. With any luck, DMV will call Frank back in about 10 minutes. Frank takes the solo sex picture along with the corresponding email with Jason Beale and puts it all into a manila envelope with a small metal clasp. During this time, Joe gets a text message from a friend at the coroner's office. Dr. Albert Hinola writes, "Jason Beale autopsy muy interesting. Too complicated for text. Call me or stop by the morgue. Al." Joe smiles. Dr. Al is on top of his game. Jason Beale just died last night. What could Autopsy be showing at this early stage? In any case, good. Once he gets back to his desk, Joe will call Al and see what he's got. Joe looks at the manila envelope containing the sex picture of Carrie Toft in the blue chair. Now that is one picture. It would be extremely awkward if accidentally seen in mixed company. Such things lead to complaints, duty reprimands. Joe checks to ensure the envelope's tiny metal clasp is closed securely. Nothing more to do here at Jason Beale's house, so cops take the manila envelope and Jason's laptop out to their unmarked vehicle and make their way back down the hill.
We got the home address on Jason's alluring pen pal, Carrie Toft. Sky-high cheekbones, tent-pole waist, aftermarket silicone upgrades. About the only real thing on Carrie was her attitude. High maintenance, high risk. Right up Jason's alley.
Greeting detectives at her front door, Carrie wears a small flower-print summer dress. She emits a fragrance of baby powder. Standing 5'9" in heels, the curvy 25-year-old model invites cops into her living room and serves them bottled water. Carrie's small, two-bedroom house looks like something out of a furniture catalog. A polished and never used upright piano near the window. An authentic gas fireplace, complete with pictures on the mantel, good for holiday nostalgia. Fresh flowers in a vase centered on the dining room table. Frank looks closely, gently touches a finger to a delicate flower petal. Larger potted plants punctuate the room's corners and empty spaces. A quiet indoor garden in West LA. Carrie sits down on an expensive patchwork couch and, with a sweep of a manicured hand, gestures for the men to sit. Sitting, dropping down into an oversized armchair, Joe is instantly dwarfed, and he takes a moment to get comfortable. Frank remains standing near the room's bookshelf, admiring Carrie's stereo system as only a geek can. Her smartphone docked nicely in the cradle, recharging as it plays music from the phone's media player. Leaning in close, Frank reads the MP3 tag info and writes it in his notebook. Alguna Vez by Massimiliano De Carlo. Noticing Frank looking closely at her smartphone, Carrie says,
"Sorry about the mess. I'm kind of crazed. Pilot season."
You should see my place.
She makes eye contact with Frank and smiles. He gives her a friendly nod, then turns down the music and casually begins walking around the room.
We're trying to piece together Jason Beale's last night.
Yeah, Like, I can't believe it. He was such a great guy.
Carrie talks a lot, but she doesn't say anything. Joe smells
Had a real
BS,
sense
and the
of-
seasoned detective focuses more on Carrie's behavior and less on her words.
But I hadn't talked to him in about a week.
Enemies? Anybody have anything against him?
No. I mean,
As she talks to Joe, Carrie keeps looking at Frank, who now stands at the fireplace, looking at pictures on the mantel of Carrie's friends and family.
he could rub people the wrong way. He had a real sense of...
It's called displacement behavior by pet shrinks on the Animal Channel. We call it babble.
instant gratification.
Probably not aware she's doing it, Carrie starts nervously stroking her legs as she watches Frank put one picture down and pick up another.
I mean, when he saw
She's worried about something that my partner will see.
he just took it.
And like the old cold, warm, and warmer of a hide-and-seek game, when he finds it, Carrie will let us know.
Carrie's talking stops. Frank shows her the picture and asks,
"Who's this?"
Just some guy?
Joe reaches behind. His partner in sync hands him the picture. Still seated comfortably, Joe looks at a small, professional portrait of Carrie being held from behind romantically by a tall, handsome young man of college age. He has short black hair, broad shoulders, athletic physique, his smile almost too large for his face. A happy, shining couple, their entire lives ahead of them.
That's Lee.
Why is he important?
What?
Carrie, you're not very happy that I picked up that photo.
Lee is my boyfriend. Jason and I were just buddies.
The manila envelope already on Joe's lap. He takes out Carrie's email picture.
Care to rephrase? Lee know about Jason?
You guys are way off. Lee had nothing to do with what happened to Jason.
You know where he is?
Reluctantly, Carrie tells detectives everything she knows. And half an hour later, Joe and Frank catch up with her boyfriend, Lee Kaloff, at the Robert Pearl Public Aquatic Center in West L.A. Known by locals as The Plunge, the public swimming pool has that healthy, humid air that smells like chlorine, new plastics, and medicated eucalyptus rub. Just out of the pool, Lee Kaloff greets detectives and wraps the towel around his waist.
Sure, I sort of know him. We used to play together.
6'2", 200 pounds, short dark hair, muscular build, not a molecule of fat on his lean, water-drenched torso.
We heard Jason might have had a little trouble with the drug test.
Yeah, that was rough. It goes out the window real quick when you show positive for coke.
Ain't man testing a bitch.
Tell me about it.
Detectives accompany the athlete as he walks over to his outdoor locker.
So what about last night?
What about it?
She looks like you had a late night, that's all.
Yeah, I was at the library studying.
It must be hard balancing athletics and school. What subject?
Bio.
So you and Jason kept in touch?
Not really. You know, I don't like the idea that you think that I...
Think what?
It's never personal, Lee. We actually think there may be a drug angle.
Not really, no.
We're not narcs, Lee. Just give us a name. No strings.
Like someone around MacArthur Park?
The convicts might blow MacArthur Park.
Yeah, that's a bad question. Enlighten us. Where would Jason go to school?
Instantly, the aquatic superstars clear on the concept, and eager to avoid getting into a jam with the cops, Lee furnishes detectives with the name of Jason Beale's coke dealer, Farhad Payami. Returning to Robbery Homicide Division, Frank Smith drives as Joe Friday, sitting in the passenger seat, puts in a call to Gang and Narcotics Division, GND, requesting a home address for one Farhad Payami, P-A-Y-A-M-I, cocaine dealer of the deceased, Jason Beale. The yellow barrier goes up. Frank slowly drives their unmarked squad car down the ramp into the police station's underground parking structure. Still on the phone, Joe Friday talks to Sergeant Sigmund Garcia at Narco. Garcia says the name Farhad Payami sounds familiar. He takes down Joe's smartphone number, says give him 5-10 minutes and Garcia will call Joe back. Friday thanks Garcia and ends the call. After Frank parks and turns off the engine, detectives exit the vehicle, and as they head for the elevator, Joe tells Frank about the text message from the coroner's office. Once upstairs, Joe Friday will call Dr. Al back and find out what's up. And while he's doing that, Frank needs to start a background check on Jason's movie maker friend, Eddie Polian, the skinny white guy with glasses. Joe and Frank both pause for a minute, then both nod as Joe adds, and Jason's hookup sex buddy, Carrie Toft, as well as Carrie's Aquaman boyfriend, Lee Kaloff. Stepping into the elevator, Joe tells Frank to go through everything. Credit checks, employment history, college transcripts, the works. Check all the fingerprint databases. Any of these kids ever served time, whether prison or military? Any of them bonded as taxi drivers, armored car guards? Anyone have a government clearance? Joe's smartphone rings. Caller ID says Narcotics Garcia. That was fast. Joe jabs the green button and Frank listens to his partner's half of the call.
Payami, YAM. He's a dealer. How many? I'm coming up. That was Narco. They got 7 most recent addresses on Payami. I'm gonna go sort through them. Check with the coroner, see where they are on that autopsy.
Frank Smith exits the elevator, and as he starts heading for his desk, he spots a familiar face.
Detective?
Alana. Jason's sister.
A pretty but troubled young woman, 5'7", 120 pounds, skinny, long-sleeved charcoal sweater over dark blue slacks, large black purse, small nondescript earrings, dishwater blonde hair quickly tied back. Despite her designer clothes, Alana's disposition is that of an exhausted third-world refugee.
I didn't know you were coming by. I hope you weren't waiting long.
I was on my way back from the funeral home. My mom really isn't in shape to deal with things, and I just wanted to tell you.
Clearly, this young woman is a miserable wreck, and Frank, maintaining a comfortable distance, guides Alana down the LAPD office hallway.
I don't know what you found out about my brother, but my father and Jason weren't.
Yeah, we know it's a problem, man.
He was just obsessed with Jason being successful.
Like him.
If you call that successful.
As they round a corner, the detective rushes ahead, grabs a chair, and positions it near his desk. He gestures at it for Alana, and waits till she's seated before sitting down in his own chair across the desk from her.
My father isn't exactly the most honorable man. He never cared who got laid off or screwed over as long as his earnings beat the street.
Your brother subscribed to that?
He was making money. He called me last week, took me to lunch. There he was, throwing his keys at the valet, snapping at the waiters. I'm sorry, I don't know why I came. I should go.
Other people don't know your brother like you did.
He'd never acted like that before. It wasn't him. I guess I just needed to say whatever he'd gotten himself into, whatever he'd become, it wasn't his fault.
Did your brother ever work at any homeless shelters? Soup kitchens?
Not that I know of.
Because we found these at his place. Any idea what they might be?
No, sorry. I should go. Thank you.
Frank watches the grief-stricken young woman, makes a hasty retreat to the elevator. As the elevator doors open, she passes Joe Friday, just returned from Narco, upstairs. Joe turns to greet Alana, but shaking her head, averting her tearful eyes, the distraught sister of a murdered cocaine user disappears into the elevator as the doors close. Joe walks over to Frank, who briefs him about Alana's sit-down just now. Still shook up, she says her brother Jason has become different recently, claims she knows nothing about the Polaroid pictures found in Jason's kitchen. Joe tells Frank to get his body armor and check out his sidearm. They're about to pay an unannounced visit to the West LA home of drug dealer Farhad Payami.
Established dealers make specific choices in architecture. Expensive surroundings justify higher prices, and the erroneous belief that better quality is offered. Farhad Payami had moved past mid-level into classic Spanish revival. Thick walls, empty hallways. He kept his door ajar so the neighbors wouldn't hear it opening and closing all day and get suspicious. It's a smart idea most of the time. Not today.
Taking advantage of Farhad Payami's open-door policy, Joe and Frank walk right into a surprisingly well-lit one-room bachelor apartment. Standard floor plan layout, large TV-DVD entertainment system on the left, facing a couch and coffee table on the right. Far side of the living room is a small kitchen and dinette. Various video games and electronics laying around in different states of repair. Casually moving from the kitchen to the dining room table, the man of the hour, Farhad Payami.
Cops. The other white meat. See what he did there, Joe? He just called us pigs, but in like a roundabout kind of way. Clever.
Farhad Payami, 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, short black hair, brown eyes, olive skin. At this moment, in the process of putting on a red silk shirt over black designer jeans.
You got a warrant? You don't need a warrant to have a conversation, do you? I'm not feeling real conversational.
Impossible to miss the conspicuous articles on the living room coffee table. Approximately 150 small baggies powdered with a fine layer of white dust, and 2 small mirrors laid flat, each with its own razor blade.
Just tell us about Jason Beale.
Doesn't ring a bell. Kinda like you guys. Doesn't knock, doesn't ring a bell.
Client of yours. Got killed sometime last night.
Sucks for him.
Joe stands center of the living room, facing Payami in the kitchen, as Frank ruffles through couch cushions and corners looking for possible weapons. Seems Joe and Frank have caught Payami at a good time, when he's alone, and cops are between him and his trusty crowbar leaning against the corner near the front door.
It's about Jason Beale. His cell phone record says he paged you at 7:14 p.m.
Sucks for you. You get a lot of pages.
Let's make this easy. Did you ever play I Spy? I spy with my little eye 100 1-ounce Ziploc bags with cocaine residue on the coffee table.
I don't like that game. All right. Let's say hypothetically I know the guy.
So hypothetically, when did he come over and what did he want?
I'm not saying he came by at 8:30, and I'm not saying he wanted a couple of 8 balls and some wet.
Joe interrupts, just so we're clear. 2 8 balls, that's 2 8s, 1/4, quarter ounce of coke. Payami nods the affirmative. Yes, quarter ounce of coke. Joe asks, and how much wet? Payami explains, actually 5 joints, reefer, dipped in PCP, known as wet. Joe says, so altogether, how long was he here? Farhad Payami says, no more than 5 minutes. Jason Beale had called an hour prior, and Payami had had everything ready by the time Jason arrived. It was mostly just a handoff. Jason's cash, Farhad's product. And then what?
And then he was on his way. Well, what's kind of ghetto for a rich kid, don't you think? Ghetto's in, man. PCP's making a big comeback. Well, congratulations. And that's about all I'm not going to say about Jason Beale.
Farhad Payami, not exactly a friend of the department, but he's been informative. Detectives thank Payami for the info, get in the car, and take Wilshire Boulevard all the way back to downtown LA. With Frank behind the wheel and Joe in the passenger seat, 2 men rehash what they've learned so far. Ironically, drug dealer Farhad Payami's account is the only thing that makes sense, so detectives consider this information reliable. Last night at 8:30, Jason Beale bought a quarter ounce of cocaine and 5 joints dipped in PCP. He then left the apartment of Farhad Payami at approximately 8:35 p.m. And that's the last thing that makes sense. 3.5 hours later, Jason's somehow smothered to death at MacArthur Park. The killer tries to make it look like a gang hit. Well, right. What type of gang kills people by asphyxiation? Plus, whoever killed Jason Beale, how did they stop his breathing? Plastic bag over the head? Chokehold? What about that drug that paralyzes the lungs, acetylcholine? Something's really wrong with this story. The guy's got a reliable, safe drug dealer living in an upscale apartment in West LA. So why go to some armpit like MacArthur Park? Most of his peers wouldn't go there at 12 noon, but Jason Beale's there late at night. Then there's Jason's closest contacts, his sexy friend with benefits, Carrie Tofts, aspiring filmmaker Eddie Polian, and water polo jock Lee Kaloff, the Three Stooges. No prison, no military, so no fingerprints in the system. All 3 have shoddy credit, high school and college transcripts about the same. To be fair, similar to many young adults just starting out. These kids are not the murderer's type. Never mind suspects. At this point, cops don't even have a person of interest. When detectives arrive at the coroner's office, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and the 2 officers must swipe their police ID cards in order to enter the dimly lit first floor of the building. Abandoned for the night, empty offices and desks, and detectives take the elevator downstairs to the morgue, which, by contrast, is lit up like a Roman candle, busily staffed with about 24 forensic personnel in lab coats and scrubs. Standing 6'2", weighing 300 pounds, Dr. Albert Hanola is a 40-year-old giant with long black wavy hair, currently pinned up beneath a balloon print headscarf. The enormous South Pacific Islander wears baby blue scrubs and some sort of breathing mask loosened and dangling around his neck. Dr. Al carries a clipboard as he leads detectives down the hall to the body of Jason Beale. Curious about the cocaine and PCP, Frank Smith asks Dr. Hanola if they found either substance in Jason Beale's blood.
Touchscreen came positive for cocaine.
What about PCP? Bought joints dipped in the stuff.
Special wet sauce? Nope.
So Jason Beale did do coke, but not PCP? What's up with that? The three men stand over the body of Jason Beale. A large red Y splayed across his chest, a souvenir of Dr. Hanola's invasive autopsy, a scar which Jason Beale will take to the grave. The men speculate, why does some rich white kid powder his nose with magic dust and then, late at night, go and visit MacArthur Park carrying 5 joints covered in PCP, which, by the way, Jason never ingests? Who the hell does this?
So he loads up at Farhad's, does a few bumps, heads downtown to unload it.
No, not enough weight to be delivering.
Actually, it looks like someone delivered him to the crime scene.
Dr. Al lifts the cadaver's right arm,
Check it out.
exposing the inner bicep near the right armpit.
Finger marks. So he was dragged. Or carried. But dead bodies don't bruise.
Before lividity sets in, they do. You got a small window post-mortem.
So somebody whacks him on the head, smothers him.
Carried the body to the concrete so they can tag him, pin it on 8th Street.
Except he wasn't smothered. And I'm thinking he wasn't killed in the park either.
Dr. Al holds up a translucent plastic jar filled with pink, milky fluid.
What the hell is that?
From his bronchi and trachea, equal parts. Mucus, air, and water. Drowner's cocktail.
Drowned?
Yep. Chlorinated water. I'd look for a well-maintained pool.
Chlorinated water offered a limited pool of possibilities. First on the list was Olympic wannabe Lee Kaloff, with his working knowledge of water polo and drug dealing.
Cops hang out in the quad, waiting for the athlete to exit the Humanities building. But this time, lead partner Joe Friday will hang back and take notes as Detective 1, Frank Smith, leads the interview.
Studying biology at the library. It's a little late for that.
What do you mean?
You flunked biology. Last semester.
Okay, I was out of town in Vegas.
This is a homicide investigation, and you've lied to us about your alibi. So why the hell should we believe you this time?
The guy that paid our way to Vegas isn't alone. A rich one. But if anybody found out, it'd be considered a gift. My eligibility would be shot. I'm trying to make the Olympic team. God, why is this happening to me?
Relax. This thing checks out. The Olympic Committee doesn't need to know.
I knew Carrie was sleeping with him. The guy's got serious money and they're on scholarship.
Any idea how he made that money?
He told Carrie he was a movie producer, but then everyone tells her that.
Detectives tell Lee Kaloff he's free to go about his business, but do not leave town.
We had run a check on Jason Beale's credit cards. One charge was from a convenience store 2 blocks from MacArthur Park. What made it unusual was the time, 3:35 a.m., well after Jason's death.
ABC convenience store owner Raymond Ma allows detectives to review his security video. At 3:35 on the black and white video, the customer uses Jason Beale's credit card to pay for 3 bottles of liquor. The customer appears to be a tall, white street person. He wears a dark-colored stocking cap over a dark-colored t-shirt with the sleeves cut off.
Yep, and he forgot to check ID.
Either Jason Beale was reincarnated as a street person or we got ourselves a suspect.
I know him. I see him down the block at the Mission.
After uploading the video file to their dash-mounted laptop, detectives print out a screenshot of the customer, long shot, visible from the head down to the knees, showing his general stature and height-weight proportions, as well as a recognizable view of the man's face. Cops thank Mr. Ma for his help and make their way to the Rampart Victory homeless shelter to see if anyone there can identify the man in the picture. Despite the placard which reads, Howard Sykes, Administrator, the locked office with a safety glass window contains only an empty chair behind a somewhat cluttered desk. Lights off. Joe and Frank hear voices coming from their left, and they head in that direction. Leaving the administrator's office and following the sounds, the next door in the hallway is an old door painted orange. The two men must push to open the heavy orange door. It feels like a door to a vault. They enter an old but well-maintained kitchen, more correctly a galley. An oversized kitchen, the type one might expect to find in some public high school or county hospital. It's easy to spot the man in charge. Howard Sykes, Administrator, is giving instructions to an elderly Hispanic woman standing near a large service window which opens to face a dimly lit dining hall, disappearing from view to the right. Howard Sykes is a 50-something African-American man whose muscular chest and forearms seem incongruous with the pastel lime color of his wraparound apron. Sykes' simple barbershop haircut is cropped short. A neatly trimmed mustache accents an otherwise clean-shaven face. Professional demeanor with the woman he's speaking to, Joe Friday, makes Sykes for a military vet. Sykes takes newly cleaned food trays out of a side-loading dishwasher as Joe and Frank approach and identify themselves as LAPD officers. Cops show Sykes the image from the convenience store security video and ask if he recognizes the tall white guy in the picture. Sykes takes the printout, looks at it, and hands it back.
Yeah, Kermit. Been coming here most nights, about 6 months now.
Wednesday night?
Like I say, he comes, he goes. It's about that guy who got killed in the park.
We're looking for anyone who might be a witness.
Kid. Right.
Is there something funny?
4 men died in that park last year from exposure. Nobody gave a damn.
Turning his back on detectives, Sykes carries the trays over to the service window and lays them out evenly spaced across the counter so they are accessible to the dining room.
And some rich white boy goes where he doesn't belong, and all of a sudden it's a cop convention down here.
Well, isn't he well informed?
It's my neighborhood, Chief.
Do you know anyone that might be involved?
No, I don't. Just hope Kerm or some other poor guy didn't take the rap.
Nobody takes the rap unless they're guilty.
Just then, something in the dining room catches Sykes' attention, and he looks down at the trays.
We just want to talk to him.
I'll tell you what. Let's go to my office. Make a couple of phone calls, see what I can dig up. This way, gentlemen.
Joe gives his partner the nod, and Frank follows Howard Sykes back out the heavy orange door they came in, and the two head toward Sykes' office. Meanwhile, Joe hangs back in the galley.
Sometimes a helping hand is only offered to take your attention off the other hand, the one hiding the ace. Sykes went from Al Sharpton to Emily Post on a dime, and to me that said he wasn't leading us to his office as much as he was leading us away from something, or someone.
When he looks out at the dining hall, surprise, surprise, Joe sees the man from the security video, Kermit busy placing chairs one by one at the long eating tables. Joe exits the enormous kitchen, makes eye contact with Kermit, and gives a friendly wave with a universal come here gesture. Meanwhile, wise to Joe's move, Frank Smith wordlessly abandons Howard Sykes at his office door, then calmly but quickly moves to the dining hall, approaching Kermit from behind.
Hey, Kermit.
The two men converge on Kermit peacefully and without incident.
LAPD.
Joe makes formal introductions as Frank applies handcuffs and begins frisking the primary suspect.
I'm Sergeant Friday. This is Detective Smith. You're going to take a little ride with us, Kermit.
Sure. Got all the time in the world.
Going through Kermit's pockets, Frank Smith hits pay dirt, pulling out 4 credit cards, each bearing the name of the deceased.
Been shopping at Barney's lately, Mr. Beale?
I go where God commands. He never said anything about Barney.
Let's go.
Half an hour after Kermit's booking, the 3 men meet in LAPD downtown metro station, interview room 7. Unlike the movies, the fluorescent lights are in good repair and do not flicker. Frank Smith stands as Joe Friday sits across a Formica table from the homicide suspect referred to as Kermit John Doe. Here now, in this room, detectives lay their cards on the table, literally. Detective Smith spreads Jason Beale's credit cards on the table in front of Kermit. Then, the stack of Polaroid photos recovered in the kitchen of Jason Beale. Finally, as he begins, Frank drops the empty brown wallet on the table and asks,
So, Kermit, where'd you get the wallet?
Yeah, I found that in the trash can in the park.
Found it, huh?
That's what I do. I find things.
That's a convenient hobby.
No, it's not a hobby.
Standard state-issued metal furniture. Concrete walls painted white years ago. Today adorned with mugshots, bulletins, and notices.
I find things where he tells me.
Who tells you?
Just Scott. I don't listen to the other voices. I listen to and I obey only him.
Did God ever tell you to kill Jason Beale?
No.
Kermit is currently uncuffed, but sitting in a room with 2 cops and dozens more just outside. Only a complete lunatic would jump from his chair, lunge for the door, and try to make a break for it.
Hey.
Nothing Joe and Frank haven't seen before. Frank subdues this whack job, and the 2 lawmen continue their interview.
We don't think you just found the wallet, Kermit.
The senior detective puts down the wallet, shuffles through the Polaroid pictures, pulls out Kermit's picture, and lays it before him.
See, you knew Mr. Beale.
Yeah. With the camera. In the wars.
The wars.
When God punishes the sinners.
And Jason was a sinner.
We're all sinners, my brother. And we will all be forgiven.
So if you accidentally killed Jason Beale, God would forgive you.
Yeah. Accidentally killed him. How?
Well, only you could tell us that, Kermit.
Well, I'm schizophrenic. There's a lot I don't know, a lot I could never figure out in my head. Like you guys are talking to me, but the others are talking to me too. Hard to figure out.
Joe suspends questioning until Kermit is assigned legal counsel. Detectives conclude this interview, and Kermit is returned to his cell. But Joe Friday just does not see Kermit as the killer. The homeless schizophrenic admits he found Jason Beale's wallet and credit cards in the trash can, and that matches with the details of the case.
You really think you just stumbled across those credit cards?
Someone's trying to make a murder look like a robbery. Take Beale's wallet, throw it in the trash. Maybe there's a connection, but I don't see Kermit drowning Beale, and I don't see him spray painting a phony tag.
There's a fountain on the other side of the park. Well, we should at least get SID to test the water.
Knock yourself out, Frank. Says he knows Jason from the wars. What the hell does that mean?
Maybe the war of voices in his head? Who knows what's real with that guy?
Well, that Polaroid of Kermit is real. Jason was using him for something.
You think it has something to do with the number on the picture?
I know how to find out.
Joe decides they should visit the evidence room. It's a warm day and both men leave their jackets at the office. Exiting the building, Joe carries the murder book and Frank brings a tablet PC and a water bottle. The 2 men walk along a tree-shaded city sidewalk leading to the next building over. Frank recalls Dr. Al Hinola's autopsy. Chlorinated water in Jason Beale's lungs suggests a well-maintained swimming pool or jacuzzi. Joe agrees. Here's what we know for sure. Wednesday about midnight, Jason Beale was bludgeoned, then drowned. Evidence of blunt force head trauma shows the weapon used was a hard, square-shaped object with a smooth edge. Finger marks beneath his armpits suggest that at some point, before or after he was drowned, Jason's body was dragged from one location to another. Could Jason have been beaten unconscious, then dragged to the swimming pool? Dr. Al says finger marks could have been caused after he drowned. He may have been drowned at a different location, but either way, Jason's dead body was found in MacArthur Park the following morning, Thursday. Killer or killers tried to cover their tracks by spray painting a poorly rendered gang symbol beneath the dead body, an amateur forgery by someone not familiar with the written language. Detectives quickly ruled out Jason Beale's immediate family early on. Jason's mother, Georgina, referred detectives to his close friend, Eddie Polian, filmmaker they spoke to in the video edit room, skinny white guy with glasses. Said he's studying the works of Slavko Bukovic. The 20-something film student confirmed Jason Beale did do coke, and Eddie Polian was not surprised to learn Jason was found at MacArthur Park. Then there's Jason Beale's mistress, Carrie Toft, sexy lingerie model who strokes her legs when she gets nervous. Nice. Her mistress duties notwithstanding, Carrie refers cops to her actual boyfriend, water polo jock Lee Kaloff. Like Jason Beale, also a knowledgeable fan of Peruvian marching powder. After confirming Eddie's story that Jason Beale did do cocaine, Lee Kaloff gives cops the name of Jason's upscale drug dealer, Farhad Payami, with his open-door policy. He doesn't like cops. Then it gets weird. Farhad Payami admits to selling Jason a quarter ounce of coke and some PCP. But no one, including Autopsy, ever saw Jason Beale do PCP. Only coke. So what was he doing with a special wet sauce at MacArthur Park late at night? Detectives pause their grim conversation while a lady walks by with her dog. Another of LAPD's unsatisfied customers, homeless shelter administrator Howard Sykes, who lectured detectives about homeless people being scapegoats. Howard Sykes does not like cops. Everyone's a critic. The closest thing they have to a suspect, Kermit John Doe, the trash-digging schizophrenic homeless man who buys liquor with dead guys' credit cards. And Crazy Kermit, what did he mean with the wars? The wars in which God will punish the sinners. A shady bunch of characters, no doubt, but not one had a motive to kill Jason Beale. No, there's some missing piece detectives are just not seeing. Maybe they'll see it here. Opening a heavy set of glass doors, investigators enter the evidence room. Originally a savings and loan, then purchased by LAPD after the housing market crash. The one-story concrete blockhouse, considered ideal for its close proximity to the station, as well as the structural integrity inherent in any building insured by the FDIC. Simply put, the place is one giant vault with strict protocol. They enter the lobby and approach a uniformed sheriff deputy standing behind a service desk. Living up to his name, Sergeant John Hightower stands 6'2" on a lean 190-pound frame. Joe and Frank fill out a form and give Hightower the case number, which he enters into his tablet. Dark hair, brown eyes, approximately 50 years of age. John Hightower has Mediterranean features, possibly Italian or Moroccan descent. The sheriff deputy produces a small red keychain and walks the men over to reference workstation number 11. A few minutes later, the three men are looking through a forensic replica of the hard drive belonging to the late Jason Beale.
You can tell a lot about someone by what they keep on their hard drive. Jason's laptop was overflowing with hip-hop MP3s, bukkake video streams, and numerous references to something called
Bum Wars. They're reference numbers.
Using his own tablet, Hightower quietly pulls up bumwars.com, a merchant site selling DVDs for $30 a piece, or you can get a videotape for $20. Hightower looks at a sample video as Joe and Frank go through all manner of documents and spreadsheets pertaining to Bum Wars.
Names, locations, and descriptions. Financial statements. Bum Wars was Jason Beale's company.
What kind of company?
Hightower shows Joe and Frank his browser.
Your website. Some kind of video company. They sell their tapes online. The site's got a lot of bells and whistles. Really well done.
Bums fighting bums. This is for real?
Welcome to internet retail.
Now we know how Jason funded his lifestyle.
Jason Beale and partners. Eddie Polian, the aspiring filmmaker they spoke to in the edit room. Eddie never mentions his good friend Jason Beale owns a video company. What else has Eddie Polian not mentioned? Joe takes a few seconds to look at the Bum Wars website on Hightower's tablet. They actually sell videos. And then...
Buy it. See if you can get it here overnight.
Detectives leave their contact info with Hightower, collect their belongings, and leave the building. Halfway back to the office, they stop at an outdoor water fountain standing between two picnic tables. Frank fills his water bottle while Joe checks his phone for messages. Items retrieved at MacArthur Park being tested by Crime Lab, hoping to identify the implement used to bludgeon Jason Beale. When they get back to the office, Joe sees a familiar yellow form laying on his desk. He reads the yellow paper and smiles to learn Kermit has been assigned counsel. Finally, now they can talk to their suspect without fear of his statement being thrown out. Detectives head upstairs to see all the goodies Crime Lab has pulled from MacArthur Park. Frank expresses pity for the poor guy who's taken Kermit's case. Woman, Joe corrects him. Paige Leong from Public Defender's Office. Paige is good people. They'll meet tomorrow, hear what Kermit has to say, take it from there. Spanning the entire 4th and 5th floors with its own internal spiral staircase, Crime Lab is an open-area array of lab tables and workstations. Simultaneously, both men recognize items from the MacArthur Park crime scene at the far side of the lab. Instinctively, they make their way toward workbench number 27. They pass assorted glass door refrigerators in different corners of the floor, jars of different liquids and powders, every type of weight scale one could imagine, a fire extinguisher everywhere you look, a rainbow of assorted indicator lights, and a strange smell neither cop can identify. Workbench number 27, a sectioned-off area roughly the size of a small garage. A large work table has a partially burned sleeping bag next to 2 empty gas cans. In the far corner, a dented shopping cart with an evidence tag on its handle. On another table, a can of spray paint, a broken boombox radio, and a men's flannel checkered shirt.
We finally knew what put Jason Beale together with the homeless in MacArthur Park. Bad as it was, it still didn't tell us how Jason had died. The crime lab thought they had an answer.
Detectives are greeted by crime tech Edwin Michaels, a heavy-set white guy. In addition to the expected lab coat, he also wears protective eyewear and leather gardening gloves.
Possible murder weapon over here. We're testing it now.
He picks up an extremely old wooden 2x4, at least 2 rusty nails visible, as well as several jagged wooden splinters.
No wood splinters found in the skull.
He's right. Chances are we're looking at something metal. I'll try it anyway, you know.
Frank Smith's gaze snaps onto the can of spray paint.
Joe.
Possibly the same can used by the killer, trying to implicate the 8th Street gang.
Looks like our tagger's color.
Well, if it did the tag, then that rules out gang involvement. No banger's gonna leave behind a good can of paint. Dust did check for prints. Get a spectrograph comparison on the paint.
Then, as senior lead officer, Detective Joe Friday tells Frank Smith he's fired till tomorrow morning. Frank laughs, and the 2 men say goodnight.
The tape we ordered was spewing its filth at us by 10 the next morning, courtesy of overnight delivery. We've all seen those shows where a starving co-ed dressed in feathers steals food from the other tribe, or a dentist from St. Louis eats boiled yak testicles buried in a bowl of worms. But this, paying homeless men to beat each other senseless, this was entertainment.
You ever read Sports Illustrated?
Action.
There's a section in each issue. This week's Sign of the Apocalypse. This tape's got to be worth at least 10 weeks.
Now there's a familiar face.
Frank hits the pause, centered in frame, the combatant's face, a crystal clear image of
Kermit.
It looks like someone's off his meds.
a homeless maniac gladiator repeatedly bashing another man with an empty trash can, i.e., a hard metal object with a flat edge. Joe and Frank show the video to Kermit's defense attorney, Paige Leong, a 34-year-old Asian woman who wears a soft yellow maternity blouse beneath a peach-colored button-down sweater, sleeves rolled up to the elbows. Based on the bulge, Joe puts her at about 6 months. The video concluded, Joe and Frank walk Paige down the hall to interview room number 7. They enter to see Kermit John Doe sitting at a powder blue Formica table. Standing across the table from Kermit, a uniformed officer quietly nods to Joe and Frank and leaves the room. Paige Leong drops the video on the table as Frank Smith closes the door.
That's the most vile, disgusting thing I've ever seen.
I don't disagree, Paige.
Paige sits down at the table next to her client.
It's also evidence.
Of what? There's no murder on that tape.
Standing with his back to the door, Frank says,
"There is felony assault."
They took advantage of these people.
Sorry, Counselor, it's material.
Joe sits down opposite Paige, looks at Kermit, and says,
Kermit, you knew Jason, right? You fought other men for him.
When he gave me the wet.
Gave you what?
What? He's talking about PCP, to make him fight. So Jason gave you this stuff Wednesday night in the park.
Now, did God punish Jason Kermit?
Kermit, don't answer that.
Did Jason really die?
Yes.
Frank leans in close.
Jason died, Kermit.
His face just inches from Kermit's.
And maybe God protected you by painting something near the body so you wouldn't get caught.
Jason died.
His eyes shifting left to right, Kermit begins rocking nervously in his chair.
He had to be punished.
Okay, guys, this interview's over.
Oh, I'm not surprised. People got hurt.
Kermit, we're going to talk about
He
this
had to
later.
be punished. He deserved it.
Paige shifts to damage control.
Look, let me talk it over with him. Maybe there's something to be worked out.
Using the DDA license found in the hard drive of Jason Beale, Joe and Frank drive to the location of Bumwar's executive offices.
The factory floor for Bum Wars Incorporated was the dirt of MacArthur Park. But their executive offices had a skyline view from a high-rent high-rise on Wilshire. I guess that's our Los Angeles version of the Wages of Sin.
Entering the office building, Joe and Frank use the directory to locate Bum Wars, then take the elevator up to the 12th floor. Detectives enter Suite 1209, Bum Wars Limited, a busy office with about 8 to a dozen college-age people, all wearing uniform gray t-shirts, some in jeans, others in cargo shorts, talking on the phone, taking orders, printing mailing labels, shipping out small and medium-sized packages, stacks of DVDs and videotapes, all bearing the unique Bum Wars logo. Detectives spot a familiar face, the film student, a skinny white guy with glasses.
Hey, Eddie. Oh, hey.
Eddie Polian wears a gray, long-sleeved designer t-shirt and a nervous expression.
What are you guys doing here?
Just dropped in to talk to Jason's business partners. You neglected to tell us that was you.
Actually, it's he and I. Greg Kovic. We were both close friends of Jason's.
Greg Kovic reaches toward Joe and the two men shake hands. Good handshake, firm, alert.
This was his ship. We're just hoping to keep it afloat.
Joe looks him over. Greg Kovic, 5'8", 185 pounds, broad shoulders, thin, agile torso, short brown hair, clean-shaven, well-groomed.
Why don't we go to the conference room?
Polite, but pushy, kind of bossy. With the confident stride of a Roman soldier, Greg Kovic leads as Joe and Frank and Eddie Polian hurry to keep up. Joe recognizes Kovic likes to dominate. So do a lot of people. Is he capable of killing a man? Yes, definitely capable. And so are a lot of people. The four men enter the conference room.
Quite an organization you've got here.
Adjusting his glasses, Eddie Polian says,
Yeah, we're scrambling to get the follow-up ready for distribution.
Detective Frank Smith quietly closes the door.
Somehow I don't think that has anything to do with Vukovic and his montage.
Vorkovich. I've had to split my time between projects.
We've taken over 6,000 pre-orders this month alone.
At $20 a pop, that's quite a profit, huh?
Worldwide demand. We're blowing up in Thailand, Germany, Japan, you name it.
You guys ever get any threats?
Yeah, we got a file drawer full of them.
We'd love to read them.
The obvious man in charge, Kovic gives Eddie a pat on the back and sends him on his way.
You know, we provide for these people. Money, food, whatever they need.
You ever provide them with wet?
I don't know what you mean.
Really?
We're not the bad guys here. We're raising awareness about the homeless problem. So, any ideas on who killed Jason?
Here's one. Where were you Wednesday night?
Here with Eddie. If need be, others can verify it.
Yeah, they'll need to.
Look, it's sad, but who can be surprised? A lot of sick minds on those streets down there.
Eddie Polian returns with a large white document envelope containing complaints and threatening letters received since Bum War's inception. Joe leaves his business card and tells the partners that if they remember anything, please call or text this number. Detectives thank the two men for their time and take their leave.
They say it's always sunny in California. I kept thinking about Greg and Eddie and how I wanted a reason to send them somewhere they'd never see the sun again. but I needed a reason. We put out word for Bum Wars talent. We figured we might find someone with a grudge.
Friday, contact Sergeant Carlos Garcia, the plainclothes cop at MacArthur Park, spoke knowledgeably about the 8th Street Gang and their signature tag with the figure 8. After a few phone calls, Sanchez puts detectives in touch with a homeless oracle named Shoeless. 5'7", 140 pounds, the 50-something African-American homeless man has agreed to assist detectives in exchange for a free meal at the food truck. Frank tells Shoeless they need the scoop on Bum Wars. What's it all about? Has anyone been victimized by Bum Wars?
Yeah, there was a guy.
Shoeless nods, thinks for a moment, and then...
Senator. I called him Senator on account he always wore a tie. They was filming him and another guy on a roof, and Senator fell right off the building, dead on impact.
The cops come?
Later, yeah.
Shoeless wears a light brown sport coat over a dark brown sweater, possibly a t-shirt underneath. Improvised pants made from some unidentified pale blue fabric. Ironically, the homeless man's running shoes are better than what Joe and Frank wear when they work out.
They figured just another wino, but on the street, they say he was doing a bum war.
Anyone you know see this?
Bums? Who's gonna believe them?
Then, like any good homicide detective, Frank Smith says,
Sounds like a possible homicide.
This senator have a real name?
Real name doesn't matter out here. Whatever you used to be, it's a lifetime ago.
Thanks.
Frank gets a text message from fingerprint specialist Brenda Sims, who writes, Frank, good call regarding fingerprints on can of spray paint. Superglue picked up one partial print. I'll bring you hard copy tomorrow. Soon, B.S. Second text comes from Ben Kaufman, forensic tech who took water samples from Jason Beale's swimming pool and jacuzzi at his Hollywood Hills mansion. Frank, chlorinated water in Jason Beale's lungs. No match to Hollywood Hills house. No match to West LA swim pool. Keep the faith. Kaufman. Based on the information provided by Shoeless, detectives do a database query search for unknown deceased men in the Skid Row district in which the victim's death was due to falling from a height of greater than 40 feet.
Nothing.
Something. John Doe, found behind condemned building on Spring and 6th. Head trauma, multiple fractures.
That's consistent with taking a 5-story dive.
That's different.
What?
Homeless, nameless, kinless, should have gone to an unmarked grave, but you got picked up by a funeral home. Someone had to pay for that.
Somebody cared. And maybe too much.
Maybe. Weeder Brothers, that's in Hollywood.
I'll go get the car.
While en route to Weeder Brothers memorial services, Joe calls ahead, identifies himself as LAPD, and explains their interest in the deceased, the homeless man known only as Senator, who died from falling from the building. Joe tells owner-proprietor Eric Weeder the approximate date of Senator's death and describes the homeless man as a white male, tall, maybe 6 feet, between 45 and 50 years of age. Eric Weeder is extremely responsive, puts Joe on hold, and returns with the name of the deceased. Senator's real name was Roy Chapman Andrews, and he is survived by his widow, Sadie Andrews, who lives in Culver City. 20 minutes later, Joe and Frank are standing in the living room of Sadie Andrews, waiting as the 56-year-old Caucasian widow puts her dog out back.
One of the perks of being a cop is you never lose your sense of surprise. Show me 100 women, I'd have never picked Sadie Andrews as having a husband who lived on the street, and who in the end paid for his funeral.
The two men look at framed pictures on the wall, the way people do when waiting for a homeowner to return. Roy Andrews. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Roy Andrews in his formal Class A uniform. The happy groom feeding wedding cake to his laughing bride, her face full of frosting. Wearing oversized cowboy hats, Roy and Sadie goofing at some amusement park. Each spouse's high school graduation portrait. Detectives notice the absence of children. Whether medically ill-advised or simple preference will remain conjecture. As Sadie enters the room, Joe says,
Your husband was a good-looking man, Miss Andrews.
Yes. Roy was very distinguished until his illness.
Sadie Andrews is 5'5", weighs 150 pounds, red hair fading to gray. Her pink sweater and green skirt well worn, but clean and serviceable. The same can be said of Sadie's humble one-bedroom house in the working-class barrio dividing Culver City and Venice Beach. Joe asks,
What do you know about the circumstances surrounding his death?
I heard he fell. There was evidence he'd been drinking. What kind of circumstances are you referring to?
Anything you might know.
I know a man couldn't live for long the way Roy was living.
2 floor lights sufficiently illuminate a living room about the size of interview room 7 where they spoke with Kermit.
10, 11 years ago, he started hearing whispers. It got bad. We saw doctors, and the medication had it under control for a while.
But it stopped working.
When he was on the medicine, we couldn't be intimate. It made him feel like he wasn't whole.
So he took himself off.
Simple furniture, inexpensive decor, everything clean and well-maintained.
I tried. I hung in until there came a point when I let him go.
Did he ever mention anything about performing in videos? Getting paid for it?
No, I don't think so. I did what I could as far as giving him money, but I'm barely getting by myself.
The guy at Weeder Brothers said the funeral costs were $1,100.
It wasn't my money. Not really. I didn't want to take it, but Howard insisted.
Howard?
Howard Sykes. He runs the shelter. He gave me the money out of his own pocket.
Detectives drive to Rampart Victory Homeless Shelter. Passion makes people do crazy things, both good and bad. In Marja, Afghanistan, U.S. Marine Lance Corporal Kyle Carpenter jumped on a grenade to protect his fellow soldiers. In Medford, Oregon, teenage sisters Hannah and Haley Smith lifted a 3,000-pound Ferguson farming tractor to save their father Jeffrey, pinned underneath, from being crushed to death. Paula Genevieve Goodwin's love for her cat Cherokee sufficiently motivated the 29-year-old Schenectady woman to attack her 31-year-old boyfriend Jeff Egner with a steak knife after he kicked Cherokee in the family living room. Paula Goodwin inflicted 7 stab wounds, 2 critical, before her mother Vanessa Goodwin interfered, saving the animal abuser boyfriend from being stabbed to death, and possibly her daughter Paula from a life sentence. Howard Sykes paid $1,100 out of his own pocket for the proper burial of Roy Andrews, also known as Senator. Obviously, the 2 men's strong emotional bond was powerful, to say the least. If his close friend Roy Andrews died doing a Bum Wars video, because of a Bum Wars video, is it possible an angry Howard Sykes got revenge by killing the producer of Bum Wars, Jason Beale? No parking at Rampart Victory Homeless Shelter. Fortunately, street parking favors the brave, and cops find an open spot just around the corner under a shady tree. Enlightenment. Entering the homeless shelter, detectives find Howard Sykes right where they left him, in the galley, again working on the dishwasher. Therapeutic and productive.
Roy Chapman Andrews was a veteran, a gentleman. He deserved a proper funeral.
And you gave him one. He was your friend.
Man had a good heart.
Well, knowing this presents a problem for you and for us.
We found this letter at the Bum Wars offices. Very angry. You recognize that handwriting?
Sykes takes the document from Friday, looks at it, hands it back.
Yes, I was indignant about what they were doing. Is freedom of expression suddenly a crime?
Well, it was in '91 when you expressed yourself to a Ronaldo Copley. Remember? 3 broken ribs, failed kidney.
Copley was a drug dealer.
So you're a vigilante?
I was defending myself. There were witnesses.
Where were you on Wednesday night?
I was handing out blankets till about midnight, then I went home.
Go by the park?
It's on the way.
Motive and opportunity.
You think I killed Jason Beale?
I understand you hated what they were doing. I understand that Senator's death could have pushed someone over the edge.
I pray to forget the time when I might have killed that boy, because believe me, there was such a time. I did not see your victim. I saw the others, but I did not see him.
Others?
His buddies. White, clean cut. One had glasses and his damn video camera.
This is significant. Better late than never. Frank Smith pulls out his notepad and starts using it.
They leave in the park. I chased them. I chased them back to their car, but that's all I did.
Sykes put Eddie and Greg at the park. Unfortunately, a biased witness who's a possible suspect doesn't make a case.
Based on this new information, detectives contact videographers Eddie Polian and Greg Kovic and ask if they could please come down to the station to assist Joe and Frank in their investigation of Jason Beale's murder. When asked the standard question, "Do I need a lawyer?" Frank says that's entirely their call. He emphasizes their appearance is optional and they are not currently charged in any crime. Frank tells Kovic first, then Polian, that one of the threatening letters, specifically a handwritten letter, referred to Jason Beale by name. It's possible this handwritten letter might reveal the person or persons responsible for the murder of video producer Jason Beale. Later, Greg Kovic and Eddie Polian enter the police station, escorted by their attorney David Katz, a short guy with wavy black hair wearing an expensive suit colored burnt orange.
Spectrography on the paint was a match and the spray can gave us a partial print. But Greg and Eddie had no record. No record means no prints, and they'd lawyered up.
Joe and Frank politely greet the three men and quickly usher them into first floor conference room D, another fluorescently lit room with state-issued metal furniture. As the five men shuffle into the small room, Joe Friday, a civilized host, gestures for everyone to sit. Only 4 chairs snugly placed around a square card table. Frank remains standing and closes the blinds. Attorney David Katz sits down directly across from Detective Joe Friday. The two men face each other as Greg sits down on Joe's right and Eddie takes a seat to his left. Stereo producers, Joe thinks to himself, Eddie can read my wristwatch and Greg can see what type of pen I use. David Katz starts off by saying,
"Okay. Before we begin, I'd like to make it clear that my clients are here of their own volition, and they're more than happy to cooperate in your investigation."
It's duly noted, Counselor.
Detective Frank Smith begins the meeting.
You each stated that you were working late the night of Jason's murder, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't leave the office until, what, Eddie? Almost 3 a.m.?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So we're all in sync on the time.
Joe opens his portfolio, takes a 4x5 glossy colored photo in each hand, and simultaneously offers both Greg and Eddie an autopsy photo of Roy Andrews.
Did you ever see this guy?
First, Eddie Polian, compliant, nervous, takes the picture, looks at it thoughtfully, and hands it back to Joe Friday. On the other hand, Greg Kovic barely glances at the photo.
Nope.
Would you look closer, please?
Greg Kovic snatches the glossy out of his hand, looks at the image.
Like I said, nope.
Then drops it dismissively in front of Joe.
Well, that's curious because we have a witness that puts you at the park and says this man died fighting in one of your bum wars.
Well, your witness is either mentally disturbed or motivated by some agenda of revenge. You have no reason to suspect these two gentlemen of anything. You've wasted our time.
Katz stands defiantly and looks down at Joe.
Simple questions, Counsel.
My clients came down here voluntarily to assist in the investigation of Jason Beale's death. Now this, not Jason Beale. This conversation is over. Guys, come on.
His two clients in tow, attorney David Katz storms out the door in a huff, leaving detectives with their smudged photos.
They lag much more effectively at the bum wars office, don't you think?
Well, fortunately for us,
Joe puts the glossy photo handled by Greg into an evidence bag,
fingerprints don't lie.
as Frank bags the photo handled by Eddie. The two detectives hand-carry the evidence bags over to Lathan's to see if Greg and Eddie's fingerprints match those lifted off the spray can at MacArthur Park. Brenda Sims had an appointment, but briefed her lab partner, Tony Washington, who's eager to assist cops on this rushed job. And for cops, Tony has good news.
The photo was a great idea. Glossy paper holds terrific latents. This guy matches the print from the spray can. You're lucky. You got your man.
It's Eddie's.
Makes sense. Jason handled the business end. Gray was the hustler.
And Eddie's the artist.
So Eddie Polian was holding the spray can. Cops can reasonably infer it was Eddie who spray painted the gang symbol beneath Jason's dead body. Eddie and Greg are both formally charged with the murder of Jason Francis Beale. And the following morning, with the aid of 6 uniformed officers, Joe and Frank serve said warrant at the Santa Monica beachfront bungalow of filmmakers Eddie Polian and Greg Kovic.
You know why cops serve arrest warrants at 6 a.m.? Because people are sleepy and stupid and full of attitude.
Police, search warrant.
With Greg and Eddie, an early morning arrest offered us the happy pleasure of starting the day on a very nasty note.
What's this? Call Cats now, Eddie.
Cops enter the premises to find the aftermath of a wild party. The trash filled with beer cans, Munchies wrappers, and vodka bottles.
You're both under arrest for murder.
My lawyer's gonna eat you, man.
You ever notice how many people claim their lawyers devour human flesh?
Might be a cult thing.
As Eddie Polian is being handcuffed, a pretty young brunette woman exits the bathroom, hands in the air with a scared look on her face. She wears a gray lifeguard t-shirt over a red one-piece bathing suit.
Get dressed, sweetheart.
My stuff's out back.
Joe nods yes to the girl and gestures, after you. He follows her down a short, sunlit hallway,
Joe, check out the fun.
which opens to a back patio where he steps out to see Frank Smith, ever the gentleman, draping a large beach towel over a curvy blonde beauty in a string bikini as she steps out of a bubbling
hot tub. How are your chlorine levels? Get SID out here to empty that. Pull the drain for hair. See that there's a chemical match on the water.
The ranking uniformed cop, Sergeant Clarence Miller, brings Joe Friday 3 large white prescription bottles.
Vicodin, Percocet, and OxyContin. No prescription needs a Schedule 4 possession. That's a felony.
Yeah, bag it. It's a start.
Later that morning, Joe and Frank, as well as fingerprint specialist Brenda Sims, are briefing their skeptical boss, Captain Robert Hooks, on the case which started with Jason Beale and has led to prior victim Roy Chapman Andrews. A frustrated Captain Hooks shakes his head. No. Insufficient evidence here. No way we can take this to the DA. They'd laugh him out of the office. A 24-year veteran of the force, Captain Hooks issues a one-word statement: coffee. And the 4 cops continue talking as they walk over to the good coffee pot near the stairway. Captain Hooks says,
So unless this guy died from an overdose of pain pills, we don't have anything even resembling material evidence. No DNA from the hot tub, no weapon.
Died of drowning. Weapon's a water source.
the 4 law enforcement officers arrive at the coffee pot, and Hooks pours powdered creamer into an empty cup.
SID said qualitative analysis could match the water from the tub to what was found in Jason Beale's stomach.
Could match is not match.
Hooks grabs a carafe and carefully pours hot coffee. Brenda Sims says,
What about motive? Why would these guys kill their partner?
Jason and Eddie grew up together in Bel Air.
But Greg grew up poor in Bakersfield.
With her one free hand, Brenda Sims puts a cup on the table, grabs the carafe, and pours.
And looking over the Bumware accounts, it looks like Jason was skimming profits.
But your vagrant has confessed. If defense uses that, some prints on a paint can won't meet a jury's burden of proof. These guys will walk.
And with that, Captain Robert Hooks takes his coffee back to his office.
It's got a terrible way of being right.
It's got to be the hot tub. Where else do you find chlorine?
Chlorine kills bacteria. It's a cleanser. What else gets cleaned?
What doesn't? Windows, carpets, toilets.
Toilets.
What's the nearest source of chlorinated water to the dead body?
Toilets.
Frank gets the keys, and detectives return to MacArthur Park, specifically the restroom nearest the crime scene. But 20 minutes later, when they arrive, they're met by a locked door with an out-of-order sign. As often happens, the person with the keys recognizes police, assumes lawful intent, and is eager to grant access. In this case, the man who approaches is grounds custodian George Deacon, a 60-something Caucasian man with a beard, 6 feet tall, 240 pounds with a large gut and smelling of breath mints. In this area, one could do worse. Speaking with Deacon, detectives learn this restroom has been out of service since the day before yesterday. Even though the toilets were not working, the restroom remained unlocked and accessible to the public until early this morning. George Deacon tells cops, in order to close and lock a public restroom, a valid out-of-order sign must be conspicuously posted at eye level.
It's been out of order a couple days, but just got the sign up this morning.
But it wasn't locked?
Nope. Holding his keyring with both hands, George Deacon opens the door, and the men are hit with the pungent odor of bodily functions. The restroom is flooded at least 2 inches deep. Detectives wade into the ankle-deep water of the MacArthur Park men's room.
Mind your steps, light's busted and a little wet.
It's more than a little wet.
Toilet's got a leak.
The restroom is nearly pitch black, and each detective instinctively pulls from his belt a handheld LED flashlight as Deacon tries unsuccessfully to prop open the door.
What do you use to clean this place?
Disinfectant. Industrial strength. You need the strong stuff for in here.
Show me.
As the janitor leaves to get his supplies, Frank Smith lifts his left foot out of the water and says,
City owes me a new pair of Italian ankle boots.
Yeah, Italian by way of Taiwan.
Here.
George Deacon returns and offers for cops' inspection a white plastic container with a flashy label and a child-proof cap. Joe and Frank shine their lights on the container.
Chlorosan. Care to guess the active ingredient? You use this to clean the floors?
Everything.
Joe points his flashlight down at the murky water at their feet.
This is where he drowned. Flat on his face, 2 inches of water.
Yeah, it wasn't just sprinklers that got him wet. You cleaned it since Thursday?
A couple times, but it keeps flooding out.
Joe notices a discoloration on the wall and aims his beam at it. Above the sink and next to the mirror, a square-shaped discoloration of the paint, like a picture that had been there for several months, then removed, exposing the clean spot.
Is that a paper towel dispenser?
Yeah, steal anything that ain't bolted down, and sometimes they don't help either.
Didn't happen to go missing Wednesday night, did it?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Bingo. Paper towel dispenser.
Square, hard, with an edge.
Yeah, but what about forensics? It's been mopped twice. It's a very sanitized crime scene.
I guaranteed.
Joe lifts his shoe out of the water and points at it with his flashlight.
When they walked out of here, they took some crime scene with them.
Frank pulls out 2 translucent plastic liquid evidence collection tubes, each capable of holding 1.5 fluid ounces. He pops the lid, stoops, dumps the tube in the water at his feet, most likely the water in which Jason Beale drowned. He allows it to fill completely, then stands up, recloses it, and seals the lid. Next, he fills the second tube with George Deacon's industrial-strength chlorine. During this time, Joe calls Sidney Haskell over at Crime Lab and tells the specialist to pull all the shoes and footwear found on the search warrant from the Santa Monica house. Cops are looking for industrial-strength cleaning chemicals anywhere on the shoes. Friday thanks Haskell, looks at his smartphone, hits the red button, and ends the call. He turns to his partner and says,
Let's get out of here, it stinks.
Joe and Frank return to the police station, where Greg Kovic and Eddie Polian are being detained. Frank enters interview room 4S, designated as secure, where he sees an unhappy Greg Kovic sitting on a table.
Hello, Greg. Welcome back. How are we feeling?
Until my lawyer arrives, I'll be in a quiet mood.
Well, maybe we should go talk to Eddie.
With a disgusted sigh,
See, we're having a little contest.
Greg Kovic stands, sits down in a chair.
A sweepstakes, if you will.
Frank sits down opposite.
See, the only thing is,
the two men face each other.
only one of you comes out of here a winner.
Really?
A smug Greg Kovic, his confident, knowing smile.
Well, I think Eddie will be in a quiet mood, too.
Frank puts a folder on the table, opens it, and begins reading.
So you, Eddie, and Jason, same goals, same backgrounds.
I guess you flunked profiling.
Jason's dad was a big developer. Eddie's owned radio stations. You, what's your daddy do?
The smug, confident smile.
Telecom.
Replaced by cold, unfeeling eyes.
Publishing, high finance.
He's in a wheelchair collecting workers' comp. Most of which he spent on medical bills and vodka.
So you do know hard times.
Yeah, and I dealt with it.
And it didn't leave you scarred with a conscience. Way to go.
You know, I don't believe for a minute that you have compassion for some guy living in a dumpster pissing himself to keep warm.
I have compassion for Roy Chapman Andrews, who was a person, a human being.
I don't know who that is.
You might remember him as Senator.
Greg Kovic's face locks, an expression of intolerance frozen in time, like the Polaroid pictures of their victims found in Jason Beale's kitchen. Perhaps an attempt to conceal his recognition of the name Senator.
We lifted your prints off of his picture, by the way.
Once again, having regained his confident smile, a smug Greg Kovic leans back in his chair.
I feel that quiet mood coming on.
Okay.
Frank gets up, collects his folder, and walks around the table. On his way out the door, he stops for a moment and stands over Greg Kovic, who remains seated.
You wear a what? Size 8? 9? Your shoes?
7?
7. It's cute. Me, I got clown's feet.
I don't get it. You serve a warrant on my shoes? What, you got some kind of fetish?
Maybe it's better than that.
Frank exits the interview room and sees a note on his desk. Meet me at Crime Lab, looking at shoes. Same as before, workbench 27. Joe. This time Frank takes the stairs. He enters the spacious crime lab and sees his partner on the opposite end of the floor, talking to forensic specialist Sidney Haskell. Joe looks up, sees Frank, and waves, "Over here." Frank waves back and makes his way toward workbench number 27. From a distance, the work area looks like a cross between a high school metal shop and a doctor's office. A long table, generally used for cadavers, is lined with about a dozen pairs of men's sneakers and professional dress shoes. A small refrigerator in the corner. A powder blue sink on the left, with abundant cupboards everywhere you look. The wall-mounted TV is showing a news channel, a talking head over a stock ticker at the bottom third, its volume silenced with subtitles. Other items adorning the walls include a periodic elements chart, a paper towel dispenser, a fire extinguisher. As Frank enters speaking range, he and Joe exchange a nod, and Sidney Haskell says,
This is everything brought in on the warrant. We touched the soles of every pair. Lucky we're dealing with guys here. If the suspect was a woman, you'd still be emptying the closets.
Women in shoes. What is this, amateur night at the Comedy Store, Haskell?
So on this pair, there's a hit.
Haskell picks up a pair of red and white sneakers with an evidence tag attached.
Chlorine residue matches the chemical compounds from the park lavatory. Soaked in it.
We got him. We gotta do this right.
What do you mean?
Nail him with the weapon that caused the head injuries.
Yeah, we never found it.
Really?
Joe nods, gesturing to the paper towel dispenser above the sink. Would Greg and Eddie know the difference? Frank says,
They'll never fall for that.
We don't need him to fall. Just to stumble.
Enjoying the idea, Sidney Haskell starts removing his lab's paper towel dispenser from the wall. He spends a few minutes dirtying it up using toothpaste, coffee grounds, and ink toner from an old printer cartridge. He lightly wipes it down with a single dry paper towel and attaches an evidence tag to its handle. Haskell presents his finished masterpiece to Joe Friday. With less than 10 minutes remaining till their scheduled appointment, Joe and Frank take the sneakers, as well as the undercover paper towel dispenser, down to meeting room 12 and place both on the conference table surface. Before detectives can sit, a uniformed officer opens the door and Eddie Polian enters, flanked by his zealous defense attorney, Iris Woodington.
I acknowledge that my client has waived his rights.
Both accused and his attorney sit at the table as Joe stands over the paper towel dispenser and the shoes, each with its own evidence tag.
He's willing to talk to you on a limited basis.
Eddie Polian sits quietly focused on the evidence in front of him.
First of all, let's establish some parameters.
Frank remains standing near the door.
Parameters. It's a good idea, counselor.
I've been hired by Mr. Polian's family to represent him alone. The issue at hand is the small
Eddie
amount
had given
of
up, he just didn't know it.
medication.
The scene was churning over and over in his mind. He wished hard that the clock could be turned back, that things done could be undone, and his wishing for that would undo him.
Sure.
Okay, counsel, you know how it works. The DA's got one deal to offer on the Jason Beale murder. Currently, we've got 2 suspects. Do the math.
Did you not hear what I just said? We do not accept that my client is a suspect in anything other than an alleged possession of prescription pain medication.
Fine. But Eddie should know that his friend Jason didn't die from his head wounds.
What?
Jason drowned when his head slammed into the towel dispenser.
Wait a minute.
No. I want to hear this.
This is not relevant to our case.
Eddie foolishly stifles his only ally.
When Jason fell on the floor of the bathroom, he was still alive. 2 inches of water.
Joe gestures to his own nose and mouth.
Enough to cover his nose and mouth was all it took.
The coroner said it took him about 6 minutes to drown.
At which time he could have been dragged away to safety. 6 minutes that you and Greg took to discuss how you were going to cover up the murder. A murder which hadn't even been committed yet.
Oh, my God.
But Eddie, I'm sorry for you.
What we recommend to the DA is up to you right now. You can talk to us, or we can walk down the hall and talk to Greg.
What do you think the odds are that he won't make a deal?
Jason used the last of his father's money to get the operation up and running, so he felt he was entitled to the biggest share. Jason would never let Greg forget who was really running things, you know? Never missed an opportunity to remind Greg of where he came from, that he was Bakersfield white trash, and nothing without him. But Greg took it, because he knew we were onto something. He saw Bum Wars as this new video experience. He had a vision.
But Jason wasn't in it.
He shakes his head, no.
I was shooting some background stuff. Greg came running up, and he told me they fought. And Jason had hit his head on that thing.
Eddie gestures at the paper towel dispenser.
And he was dead. I saw him lying there. If only I'd known he wasn't dead.
Eddie Polian handwrites his statement on college-ruled paper in the presence of counsel, Iris Woodington. Their next meeting canceled, no conference room necessary. In the hallway, detectives see Greg Kovic handcuffed and escorted by a uniformed LAPD officer holding him by the elbow. His attorney, David Katz, picks up his briefcase and says,
I don't know what you're hoping to accomplish, but my client has no intention of giving a statement.
Fine. We don't need it.
As if proposing a toast. Joe lifts the red and white sneakers.
It's over, Greg.
Joe nods to the uniform, who whisks Greg Kovic away, with David Katz chasing after.
With no one at the cash register, Bum Wars closed its doors. But in only a few weeks, 5 more videos of homeless men fighting were on the market. And whatever comes next, one thing is for sure. It'll start right here in LA, at the edge of history.
Eddie Polian pleaded to a charge of conspiracy. He was given a 3-year sentence to be served at the St. Louis Obispo Men's Colony. Greg Kovic was tried for second-degree murder. Found guilty, he received 25 to life to be served in the penitentiary at Kokorin. An investigation into the death of Roy Chapman Andrews, a.k.a. Senator, is still ongoing.
We hope you've enjoyed this audio production of LA Dragnet. Season 1, Episode 2, The Big Ruckus. Original air date, 9 February 2003. Featuring the voices of Ed O'Neill, Ethan Embry, Robert Gossett, Michael Bofsheaver, Robert Hooks, Matt Newton, Chad Donella, and Dastan Khalili. Music by Mike Post, with additional compositions by Rob Navridis. LA Dragnet, created by Dick Wolf, based on the original radio and TV series Dragnet by Jack Webb. This program specially edited for audio drama at Project Wasabi Studios, Hollywood, California 90028. Narration and additional sound effects produced by Brian Newberry. For other free audio dramas, visit us online at projectwasabi.com. This is Brian Newberry for Project Wasabi. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.